I am a massive advocate for starting our workouts with a big barbell exercise, so I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. Now, for me personally, I do have one exception to that rule. I want to state it up front, like on my back and bicep days. I do start with pull-ups, right? Weighted pull-ups or weighted chin-ups before I do a barbell row. But for some people, if they weren't doing pull-ups, I might actually, if they're doing lat pull-downs instead, I would still start with the barbell row. So again, just want to clarify, people may point out, hey, when you watch your vlogs, you do start that one of your 5 days with a pull-up. But again, big weighted body weight exercises are pretty similar still. Now, that being said, usually for me, most of my workouts, the first exercise or two, very, very frequently going to tend to be these movements. They're going to be big barbell exercises. And a lot of times, again, the first two exercises. So, and I'll get in a minute to the reasons for it. Like, so my deadlift day, for example. Lately, at the time that this video is being made, I do a deadlift and then I do a glute bridge. Okay. My chest and tricep day, I tend to do a flat bench and then I do an incline bench, both with a barbell. Sometimes shoulder days can be things like a standing press followed by a barbell upright row. Leg days start with back squats. See where we're going with this? We're seeing a pattern here. We start with the big barbell exercises, then we go to the other stuff, all the way down to forearm and calf isolation and neck isolation. So again, like in my case, I will also tell you that if you want maximal development, we still need to isolate most of the muscles. Not saying every muscle needs to be isolated, right? Not saying every muscle needs to be isolated, but a pretty good chunk of them do. Pretty good chunk of them do, particularly anything that may be understimulated. So let's get over though to the barbell stuff. So why barbells? Because they're big exercises. They work a lot of stabilizers. And again, I think people get too caught up in this. Well, we want to remove the stabilizers, isolated muscle. They want to put you on all machines. And no, I think that's absolutely the opposite of what we need to do. And I am a big believer in things like machines for legs. If you guys notice, I own a reverse hyperextension. I own a belt squat machine, right? The belt squat's pretty similar to then a hack squat or a leg press in terms of the mechanics. We're taking the whole back out of the equation. So I'm a believer in those things, but people get too caught up in thinking that everything needs to be that way, and it absolutely shouldn't. You need big exercises to build everything. You need big exercises so that you can be functional, right? So that you can develop stabilizers, you can develop neural drive, intramuscular, extramuscular coordination. You need these things because otherwise you're just going to be big and strong and not athletic. And you're not losing anything by doing it. And that's kind of a key point when it comes to that. People are like, but what if I I could focus entirely on this other. It's like, but you're still building muscle with those. Again, look at some of the best bodybuilders through history. Plenty of them built Mr. Olympia physiques using big barbell movements as part of the training. It's absolutely not a downside. Okay, so when it comes to that, we need to be clear. The problem with some of those big movements and all that loading through the whole body is that too much of it can be hard on recovery. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. So, with these big barbell exercises, think of examples you see me do. Think of examples you see even in this video. Bench press, incline bench press, overhead press, all with a barbell. Rows, deadlifts, squats, upright rows, glute bridges. I'm not currently doing good mornings. I prescribe them. Front squats, okay? All these exercises, they work a lot of muscle. But the other thing is they all let us use heavy weights. So generally we can use more weight with a barbell than we can with a dumbbell. All right? We don't have to stabilize quite as much as with dumbbells. And people say, well, didn't you say that we need some of the stabilization? Sure. But you're not getting structural stabilization. It's usually just something like opposing muscle groups on the upper body. That's usually the only extra stabilization you get from the dumbbell. So people need to remember that. right? So what do we mean by that? Well, you use more biceps stabilizing a dumbbell than you do a barbell for pressing, okay? But you're not going to build the biceps really from it. So in a case like that, we're not getting the sort of stabilizers we're talking about. What I'm talking about is all through your core, right? A lot of the big movements that are standing particularly, okay? The rows, overhead pressing, the deadlifts like you see them doing. We're building all this stabilization through the entire trunk, through the entire core. We're learning to coordinate our body, all right? This is going to help with overall athleticism. It is going to help with overall development. Barbells are the best tool for that because we can use bigger weights that force us to stabilize through our body more, right? We use pretty big loads. We can use heavier loads because the upper body stabilization is easier. Okay, but there's still stabilization. It's a free weight. We get all these things, all right? The only thing is that, yeah, there can be too much of a good thing. All the axial loading and stuff adds up. And so that's the downside, you know, that people try to make towards it. But like up to a certain point, it is not a problem. And we need to be clear on that. It is beneficial. All the axial loading and things from these big barbell movements is beneficial until it's too much. Okay, so once you start reaching those thresholds or getting close to those, then what? Well, that's when we do all this other stuff to finish everything off. All right? This is how you get the best of both worlds. When people say, oh gosh, how do I get big and strong? Well, you use these big movements with big loads that require you to stabilize through the body. You start with those. Okay? We develop all that coordination. We get our body used to moving big weights, using the whole body. Then you come through and you use machines and dumbbells and cables and whatever you need to finish all those muscles and to maximally develop them. Okay? This is how you achieve those things. And it's not a compromise. People have this idea, well, I'm compromising one for the other. No, you're not. They complement each other. All right? And that's the point we need to be clear on. There's not a downside to that in terms of that. It's not like, oh, I'm going to gain less muscle because I started with these big barbell exercises. That's silly. Same thing. Oh, I'm going to compromise strength because I did some preacher curls with a dumbbell. No, of course you're not. These things complement each other. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.